to start this semester's course on Buddhism with an important recent book by Reverend Zenju Earthlyn Manuel, who's an ordained Zen Buddhist priest and a very prominent and influential American Buddhist practitioner and teacher. This is a short but really powerful book about experiences of race, sexuality, and gender in Buddhist communities and practice. Manuel grew up knowing poverty and violence. An African-American woman, she identifies as bisexual, and she has lived with disabling arthritis for most of her life. In this book, she talks frankly about living in a body that has experienced every kind of hatred possible. And her book is about how she awakened from anger and self-hatred into a kind of tenderness and love, and how she used her Buddhist practice to think about that process. Reverend Manuel grapples most intimately in this book with embodiment using a Buddhist-inspired concept she calls multiplicity in oneness. She wants to emphasize the reality that we're all embodied in different ways, and that each kind of embodiment is valuable. But at the same time, we can have a shared connection or interconnection with each other and with the natural world. This is a beautiful book about the power of being embodied. For example, on page 78, she says, "Liberation within the body encompasses the notion that our bodies are places through which we make meaning of our lives." She says it's crucial to understand that our bodies are not only biological, but are lived sites of meaning. We live within our bodies and therefore perceive life through them. This might seem kind of obvious, but how often in your school or in your life have you really investigated your experiences of embodiment deeply and analytically and thoughtfully? Reverend Manuel talks about a lot of Buddhist concepts and practices in this book, ideas like emptiness, selflessness or no self, interdependence, and the illusory nature of reality. These are all at the bedrock of this intensely personal book. I think you might like to read this book more than once at the beginning of the semester, and then again after you've learned more about these Buddhist ideas from other sources, and then maybe later, again, when in your own life it might offer you a valuable perspective. We'll also read in this unit an article by a scholar named Mallory Nye that's about the colonial history of the field of religious studies as it's studied in universities in departments of religious studies. He talks about what's called decolonizing the study of religion, which is about exposing that colonial history and then going beyond that to actually change how we teach and understand religious studies. This is an important article for us to start out with early in the semester because this is kind of the basis for how this course is actually designed and structured, and I want you to understand that. One important aspect of decolonizing the field is amplifying different perspectives on the study of religion. For example, pretty much all textbooks introducing Buddhism are written by male, white, able-bodied people. And so that's one reason why we're not relying on a textbook throughout the whole semester for this class. When we give ourselves the chance to hear from a lot of different kinds of people, we can really shift what we're able to know about Buddhism. And that's super exciting. If you're not familiar with the idea of decolonization, Mallory Nye's article and his podcast interview will explain that in more detail. Even the concept of religion, he explains, is based on colonial histories of white European Protestant Christian traditions. So if we want to learn more deeply about diverse ideas and peoples around the world, we have to start by seeing how the very structure of our learning is affected and really closed off by that colonial heritage. You'll also get a bit of an introduction to critical disability theory, which can help us think about how disability can be analyzed from cultural, historical, social, and political perspectives. critical disability studies helps all of us understand how social norms define certain functions of the body as impairments, and about how the social or cultural conditions that we live in can devalue certain kinds of bodies. This is a really important theoretical foundation for this course, how it's designed and organized. The article we'll read by Kimmerer Lamoth, called What Bodies Know About Religion and the Study of It, gives us some examples of how we might study religion in a different way. And I hope you'll see too how our course this semester is following some of these ideas. Lamoth wants us to think about the roles of our own bodies as we study religion. In this article, she's going to use the example of dance to help us think about how the bodily movements that we humans make are what allow us to think and feel and act in the specific ways that we do. And so as we come to understand this more, we can realize that making different movements might allow us to think or know really different things. I think this idea is super exciting. Using the example of dance, Lamoth says that some scholars have noticed the role of dance in various religious cultures. But the problem is that when they do that, when they do look at dance, they usually extract verbal meaning from dance. They don't see any value in the practice of dancing as a way to understand religion differently. She suggests that religious rituals or ceremonies that involve dancing or other kinds of movement are ways to practice certain patterns of thinking and feeling and acting using all the senses and using the whole body. Part of the project for this semester is to think about our own bodies as scholars or students. Reverend Manuel gives us some ideas about how to do this, and Kimmerer Lamoth gives us some other approaches. As we learn new things throughout the semester, what kinds of sensory experiences are making that possible in our bodies? What are some of the emotional or sensory or embodied experiences we're having as we're learning new things? And do we need to translate those experiences into language, or can they hold meaning or make sense just as they are, as bodily experiences or movements?